Welcome to MindBody TV. I am Dr. Kim Duramo, and this is the final of our Mind Body Miracles series, where we are having participants from our Embracing Health program who've come through this year, who have wanted to share their story, their journey, their miraculous healing, stuff that healed that they were told wouldn't heal, or that they believed was, they'd have to just manage for the rest of their lives. And I have Nancy Holzhauser here, who's an amazing, courageous woman who had dealt with very severe dry eyes, and her meibomian glands were not secreting the lubricant that keep the eye nice and smooth and lubricated. So she had this really disturbing disorder that might sound subtle, like your eyes are a little dry, but as she'll share, was really like all encompassing and all consuming. She loves to do art. She loves to read. It was constantly irritating and bothering her. She was seeing an eye doctor specialist for this gland problem and given drops for years, and told, your glands are broken. They're not going to work. Here's what you've got to do. But she knew there was something more possible. And this work really spoke to her as far as what more could my body create, and how could this heal if I am healing at a deeper level. And so she's going to share her journey with you, because it wasn't the first thing that resolved. It did start to have some recoup in the beginning, and now has fully resolved. And doctors have told her, I have no idea how you did this, but you're doing something right. So I had her here to share her journey with you, and what this journey with Embracing Health was like, both physically, mentally, emotionally, in relationships, in discovering herself and seeing the patterns she had held that she didn't even know were there, that had contributed to this, and really set her free. So thank you, beautiful Nancy, for being here and coming forward to share.
Well, thank you. I'm just so grateful to you. I do not think I would be here if it weren't for you. Seriously. Yeah, you've pulled me out. So I started the Embracing Health, I think, with you in 2018. I had retired from my business, and I was a field biologist, and it was like, oh, great, I get to be an artist full time. This was in 2016. And it was interesting. It was the same time, I'll go back into the history of my life, how it brought me up to this fight, I don't belong type of mindset. But I remember the night that Hillary didn't get elected. I was sitting on the back porch, and I honestly felt all hope just leave my body. It was like this liquid just drained out. And within a month, I was back to painting, but within a month, my eyes started just getting glitchy. And
so a stressor of what you thought that meant, or what you thought was going to happen as a result of this political thing, and then your body reacted and sort of shut down further.
Yeah. And, my whole life had been in a non-traditional work. I was a field biologist working with men back in the 70s and 80s and 70s and 80s. And so it was like, okay, finally, we're going to have a woman for president. Yay. And then I freaked out.
So that kind of like validated something in you, where as a woman now you have power, or as a woman now there's validation in being a woman.
And representation.
Okay. This is important, because I know we looked before at where you'd been in a male-dominated industry with work, and always felt being a woman was somehow a liability or a weakness.
Right. I was never enough because I was a woman. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of history with that. It's actually a look at it, and it was a confusing life. And so my eyes started being painful, and then and I was getting insomnia. And I was writing in my journal, I hate my life. This was when I still had my business. I hate my life. I want it to change. And so I started getting this idea that I don't belong on this planet anymore. And it came from a dream that I now know the dream meant something else. But that was what my ego grabbed onto. And I had everything ready to end my life because I couldn't paint. I had worked all my life, worked my butt off all my life so that I could be an artist full time. And when I finally got the opportunity to be an artist full time, it didn't work. And I was in so much pain. And then the depression, everything just came up. And so I went into I put myself into the hospital here in Eugene for people that are suicidal. And then I got out and oh man, I mean, that was a journey. There was a month of counseling afterwards. And I remember I was so like lost and depressed and crying and just could not get past anything. And we were taking this cognitive therapy, a group session of some of us that had been in the hospital, and the therapist, she was talking about cognitive behavior, and she said, oh, well, you're in such a deep hole, you're not gonna be able to get out. And so that was kind of like, oh my gosh, people are telling me this. And I was going to naturopaths and I was just trying everything. And that was 2017. And then I was taking medications because there was the pain, but then there was what it meant.
Yeah.
It meant that this was my dream and it wasn't going to be fulfilled. And so why am I here? My life isn't worth it.
So taking away your joy, not just your freedom, but the joy that you
Yeah.
put it off. Like, I'm doing this male dominated work role and suffering, and someday finally I'll be free. And it's interesting that art was the go-to, because that's a very feminine, a right brained, finally I get out of my left brain and get into that right brain. And then it's like, nope, you don't get to have it. And I was just putting in the comments, like, the programming can be so strong. It'll just take everything away. We've got to change those subconscious programs that, usually we don't know they're there. We just know, well, I have this eye disease, or I'm in a male dominated field, so of course I can't be in joy. We don't realize it's a program that's creating that experience.
Yeah. And so I went to a channeler, I went to a spiritual healer. I mean, probably just about everybody that's watching this has done the same, like, help me, help me, help me, read me, tell me what's going on, fix me. And then I heard you in 2017, I think towards the end of 2017, the Tapping Solutions Summit. And there was just some connection. It's like, oh, I really like her. I like how you present yourself. I like what you had to say. And so I started looking in, and the first time I took your Embracing Health program, I think was 2018, 2019, or 20, I don't know, it was back there. And it was more like, raise your hand, you were working one-on-one, raise your hand, fix me. I remember texting you the very first on the chat, the very first session with that Embracing Health is, please call on me. And so then I did a one-on-one with you. I did your retreat, and I have all your programs, the MindBody for chronic fatigue, for pain. And I was doing that, and I was slowly getting better, but still my eyes were there. That was my focus. Okay, I'm going to watercolors, and then I'm going finally into acrylics, and I'm painting, and I'm being out in the world, and I'm being in the wilderness, because that's who I am. But I was still, the big but, my eyes aren't 100% done. And then for some reason, you know, a lot of these things that I get, that I follow, it's like, it just this hits me, you know, this thought, well, you know what? I'm going to try her embracing health again. And so last year I signed up full time, you know, the full sign in participant for your Embracing Health program. And oh my goodness, it was so different. And at first I was kind of freaked out because I remember your first call, and the first thing I did, because I knew how to work before, and I raised my hand, and it was like, okay, call on me. But the whole time you were talking about, we're not doing it that way anymore. And I was like, oh no, you're not going to fix me. And then, I mean, what you have done with this program is profound, because you have taken the power from yourself, and you're no longer putting it into us. You are allowing us to listen and use it inside of us as our own judgment. And that was profound. I mean, there's so many things I got out of this program that I realized as I was looking through my life. I mean, the last couple of days have been really glitchy, and it's probably because I've been reviewing my life, and it was a confusing life. But the premise along the whole thing was, I am not enough. And that was what was behind all of this, to finally, you know, the universe took the thing that was the dearest to me, which was painting. That was how I live. That's how I express. And the beauty and the ecstasy and the joy. And the universe said, in 2016, when all hope fell out of me, said, sweetheart, I'm going to hit you over the head because you are not listening. This is not working for you. And it did. But prior to that, I mean, there were all these subconscious things. Oh my goodness. I mean, I always took field biology. I took wildlife and fisheries. I was the only woman. This was in the 70s. In the 60s, I was told we don't hire women. You know, so there's this whole thing of being like kind of a cutting edge. I had some peers, women, friends say, oh, you were a combat biologist, which sounds terrible, but that's kind of, you know, how we were in the 70s and early 80s is, you know, not only were we biologists working in a discipline, with a discipline like I was working for the Forest Service, and their whole premise up here is to cut timber. And so I had to come in and you know, kind of battle, you know, you got to take into account all the other creatures and the plants and stuff. And then I was a woman. I mean, I remember when it was 1980 that I moved up to Oregon, and, you know, California, I was working, and it was okay. California is very open about women they were in non-traditional positions. And then I come to Oregon Forest Service, and I know I have a bad connection because I'm spinning. I'm thinking, there, okay. And yeah, we're out in the woods, and so the connections are off and on.
Okay.
And come up to Oregon and work for the Willamette National Forest, and this is like the timber king, and totally men. And I was going to be a field biologist. I would go out in the field, which the field we call like going out in the forest and just spending all day looking at things and where they're going to plant timber sales and stuff. And I was working with a group of 8 men. We were a team. And it was like they were going, well, what do we do with her? We can't go pee in the woods like we used to. And what if she has to? And, you know, I mean, we can't tell dirty jokes. What do we do? Well, maybe we can. And it was this whole, like, I knew who I was, but I couldn't be who I was. I had to figure out how to earn their at least respect enough to listen to me. And then, you know, no, if you could not be feminine, you could not be sensual, because then you were flirting with them. And it was like, when I think about it, it's like, really? So that whole thing of I'm not enough, I'm not enough. And then when I quit the Forest Service, I was an artist for about 13 years, and then I got divorced, and um, that's when I started my own business as a field consultant, working out in
Well,
the.
it's fascinating what you're speaking to, because all of what you're pointing to is suppressing the feminine aspect, and the feminine is the flow, the wet, the moist, lubricating the joints, all of the bodily functions that lend to fluid movement, warmth, and so when we harden, and a lot of people have this, rheumatoid arthritis, there's a rigidity in the body. So that isn't just the mind and the body are one. Every neurologic connection is sending those chemical messages, and there's hormonal messages to either lead you toward that hardness and rigidity and stiffness, or lead you toward the supple, the rejuvenating, the youthful. And when we shut down the feminine expression, or we make it wrong, it's going to show up in the body. And so this is like very
Right.
evident that, like, okay, those oil secreting, lubricating glands aren't working. We'd want to look at that. Okay, where are you suppressing the flow and the feminine? And so it's kind of like right here before our eyes. I'm sure it wasn't at the time or with the doctors that were evaluating you at the time, but it's really pretty incredible to see.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I was, I did not have a friendly relationship with my body, to put it mildly. So you add that on top of it. Um, and so it was all little tiny things, and I was always fighting. I mean, I lost my parents when I was in my 20s. They both died of cancer. And so again, that was, I knew nobody that age that had lost both parents, and everybody, it was, the era that was in the 70s, the era of drugs, sex, and rock and roll. I mean, oh yeah, you're depressed. So what? Why? And so there was another suppression. Can't express the deep grief and the loss and the like, whoa, what do I do with this? Where do I go? I have nobody to turn to. And so there were all these little tiny things that went along in my life, and then finally culminated when it was like, oh my, I finally get to have my dream. I mean, that's what you always talk about. It's like, oh, if I only get this done, if I only get this done, if I only get this done, then I'll be happy and I can do what I want to do. And so yeah, I would do your self-teaching programs, and yeah, I remember when I did the retreat with you, and it blew me away. You were showing me some kind of a meditation going into my body, and I realized that I was over here, that my body was over here and not in here. And that was in 2018 when I took did the retreat with you. And so my whole life, I mean, you think about suppression and denial and stuff it down. And finally, I mean, this was just huge. It's like, you want to be an artist? We're not going to let you see until you figure out what's your real truth. And then going through your program, this year's program, what is so endearing to me is that you and Jessica and Alicia are human. I took a lot of, I don't remember, programs, self-healing programs, where they be saying, they almost were like this perfect person. And this is what I did, and this is what you do. But you guys grow. You guys, you're human. It's just like, you're just like me. And you share your vulnerability, and it allows me to go inside of me because it's safe. And I mean, out of that, I don't know, it was still in your programs. It was probably a year that I could not get my mind off of killing myself. It was just always there. And then slowly something morphed to where I didn't think about that as much. I mean, that was a big one because that's not part of my culture. Depression, nothing. My family was, just a good family, a decent, normal normal, I guess you call it, family growing up. And then, and so all these things, they're so subtle. It wasn't like, boom, I woke up and I felt great and my eyes were fine and everything was perfect. It took from 2016, 2017 till sometime this year. So there was all this resistance. Like, no, I mean, she talks this stuff and I've always known there's something else out there because I'd be out in the wilderness and that was when I could really be me and I could feel. But my eyes.
Yeah. Well, I think this is an important point to notice. Like, there were a lot of things resolving for you, more of the feminine energy coming in, which, just to explain, like, we all, men and women, both have the alpha energy, which is the outer, the assertive, the doing, and the inner energy, which is the receptive, which is the slowing down, the moving and changing. And those are different energies, but we both have both. And when they're out of balance, we're going to suffer and we're going to have health problems. And so it's definitely worth speaking to, because the wisdom will prioritize the healing. And it's not always about the thing that's getting our most attention. There may be other major things to move first. So will you speak a little bit to like what you did see? Because obviously you wouldn't have continued this if you didn't experience some real powerful things right up front, even though it might not be the thing you are coming for that moves first. What was the journey like that, as far as like what did change and what you did notice?
Oh man, Kim, it was all so subtle. I would have days that I felt great, and then something would come up and it would knock me down. And I started out, really the art, I think, is the best way to describe my journey because my art is personal. It's my the creator coming through, my part that's attached to the creator, connected to the creator, and it comes through. And so I started, for maybe an hour a day, I would do colored pencil. And I would do these incredible kind of otherworldly type of things. At that time, I had been seeing a, what do you call her? Somebody that speaks with people up above.
Channel? Medium? A medium?
Kind of like that, yeah. And she told me about orbs and how orbs are spirits that come down visibly. And she said, you have a ton of them at your property. And so I started going out with my camera at night and taking pictures of these really cool glowing orbs. And I started putting those in my art.
Wow.
And
yeah, because I know you experienced a really deep spiritual shift right away that showed up in your art with more meaning and more purpose and more messages.
Right. Yeah, because my art used to be, and it was so interesting, talking about the dimensions, the third dimension, fourth dimension, and fifth dimension. My art, back when I was suppressing all my feminine, but still that feminine would come out through my art, this is before I retired, was really the third dimension. It's like physical. We're physical. This is it, and I paint it, but I paint it kind of in a sensual manner, which was the feminine trying to keep, kind of come out and be heard. And then I started going into that fourth dimension with my art. So I was putting in the orbs and I was just doing these kind of crazy, colorful, fantastical paintings. And then I started playing with watercolor. And and then the desert, we would go to the desert. So I would have times, that this is why I kind of figured, you know what, I don't think these doctors are right. Because I would have times that I would just be like, oh, this is perfect. If it were something physically wrong, you would think it would be there all the time. And it wasn't. And so it's like, So that's when I really started following you, but I still was obsessed. The butt that you talk about a lot. And so I started doing watercolor, and then I just wanted something a little bit more. And my watercolors were like all over the place. And it
It's
was just
nice
this feeling. I
water.
was doing pink. I was doing pink. And I remember when I worked for the Forest Service, this is back when they were starting to do the civil rights, the women's, the sexual abuse, in the workplace, and trying to get women to fit in. And we were told, don't wear the color red because it incites men's pineal gland and they
Oh,
won't listen to you. So I was always like, conservative colors, and so here I was doing these watercolors, and I found this pink. It's opera pink, and it is the most intense pink. And I just started painting everything with pink, and then I put in reds, and it was like all these colors that had been suppressed
wow.
in me. And so that's kind of that is what shows what my true, your mind can just shut that stuff out. But when I paint, that's when it really comes out. Am I still there?
Yes, hold on.
Something went funky.
I
But
know. I just
there I am. Now I don't see you though. Oh well. Ain't technology great?
I hit something.
I do that all the time.
Well, people are asking, how can I connect with her? So I just wanted to share, she's in the MindBody community. You can reach out. You could just at Nancy Holzhauser. I don't know if there's a reason you didn't put your name, but it's okay if I put it there.
Sure. And and I will just put in a little clip, but I'm on Instagram, and when I do my paintings and I post them on Instagram, I will tell a story about my healing and what that painting meant. So if people want to look at that too, they can do that.
And is it at Nancy Holzhauser or?
Yes, Nancy Holzhauser. Yeah. And
okay.
And so where were we before you
Yes,
pushed those
please.
buttons?
Colors. The feminine is coming through despite.
Oh yeah. And I mean, you bought that one painting that was like, what the desert? What we don't know, the desert plays at night. It was just this crazy. I mean, everything was coming out. Everything was coming out, but I was still obsessed on my eyes. And then
I just want to share too. There's a welcome series we put up front in the Embracing Health program because I found these things to be so powerful that we've got to first allow a shift to soften around the attachment. Yes, the intention, of course, is for that, whatever it is you came for, and healing in that. But if we're attached, we're not going to allow the flow of how the body actually needs to go through that journey. We're going to suppress it. And so then it takes longer. And if we can get on board right away for like, all right, yes, I have this intention, but we'll just let go some of the attachment and some of the white knuckling so that it can happen as smoothly and quickly and fluidly as possible. And one of those videos is right there in the welcome series because someone said, I joined, where do I start? Don't let yourself be overwhelmed. If all you do is just soften your body, feel your breath in and your breath out as you put on one of the videos, it will work on you. It will allow a major shift in consciousness and a major opening in your system. And there's one specific exercise I've given up front about, what you focus on expands. And so if you stay focused on, well, yeah, X, Y, and Z is shifting, but what about this? But what about that? You're putting all your energy into recreating the problem. So it's gonna get things a little more glitchy than they otherwise would be. So it's gonna, not that it will prevent the healing from happening. You're already on the journey, but it could be so much more smooth if you remember that. Because when you start to put your energy and focus, even on the subtlest of shifts, like, whoa, this is still happening, but I feel 2% lighter. You ignite that, you amplify that, you give it more power, and you allow the health to take over even more space in your body. And that's what allows things like a quantum, instantaneous, spontaneous resolution of disease, as they call it in the medical field. That's what allows like major, major change to happen, sometimes very, very quickly. So we did speak to that in the program because I just saw it so many times. So
Yeah,
continue.
And so what was interesting is that I was still in so much resistance until I took your 2022-23 Embracing Health. I was still, I don't know what was going on inside of me before then, but as soon as I started your latest program, you have it organized. And it finally, and maybe it was just that I was ready to receive it. And wow, I get it. I get the breathing. I get the softening the body. And then, I mean, and plus having Alicia and Jessica, so you have a weekly check-in. And each one of those calls, you know, when I first came in 2022 to your program, it was like, well, this isn't going to help me because I can't spend one-on-one time with her where, you know, you would be feeling into my body and we would be doing a discussion back and forth. But then I don't know why. I honestly don't know why or when it finally clicked that I started going, oh my goodness, you put so much new stuff, your meditations. So there's been support every day for a year. And I could go back to a meditation. I could go back to a previous month's meditation. And I finally was able to just go, okay, you know, if I'm resisting, it's showing me where I need to relax and accept and embrace. And I could actually feel the resistance. So it's like this year, I actually really started being able to feel inside of me and be an observer and be a listener. I mean, what I think, I had written down a couple things, but I think the biggest thing that I have noticed in myself is I am a better listener. And that is listening to my body, listening to things around me that, oh, you know, something happened. So that's triggering something in me and being aware of what is it doing to my body. And, you know, I'm not, like you said, I mean, if you're enlightened, fully enlightened, I mean, that's not where I'm at all. I mean, my eyes still will get twitchy, but now it's like, okay, sweetheart, what are you telling me? What is it that I'm inside not wanting to see? And what do you need? And I just relax. And the questions, you know, what would it take for this to be easy? And, you know, my husband is an absolute doll. He is so supportive. And we're kind of working this together. We went to see his family in Cleveland. And I remember you said one time, oh, you think you're enlightened? Go spend a week with your family.
Yeah.
And I was like, all these triggers, you know, so the first couple of days, it's all this sludge coming up from having lost my parents and never having a family and nobody understanding. And, you know, I don't belong. And so all that came up and I was able to work with Alan, you know, too. Just, he's so open. He no longer resists. He no longer tries to fix me, you know, he knows now I'm holding space for you. And now I know
That's the
how to.
masculine feminine. The masculine can hold the space. And now that you've entered your feminine, it's going to ignite his masculine. It's going to ignite his alpha. It's going to ignite his power. But that listening, that space of listening, which is really such a major superpower, that is really where so much healing happens. And I've seen as a physician, if all I do is assist people in turning that on and deepening their presence, everything can heal.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's the whole thing of being aware of when I tighten my body. It's like, okay, yeah. And what was so funny, I mean, these things still happen along the way, but because I'm listening, and I've always kind of been aware of being a out there artist, you know, of these things that come in of, oh, well, what was that? I think my mind has always been kind of open to these things, but then I go back to my, regular business as usual.
Regular
But
operating.
now, yeah, but no, this is like, okay, this is who I am. And it's so funny because I was always in the mode of I'm not enough, that people would say I'm a Vata person. And it's because I was always busy doing things, distraction, 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 distraction. And
That
then
was the coping mechanism.
yeah.
This is important too. I want to say a lot of what we're doing with a lot of other healing modalities are on the level of the consciousness, on the physical body or with the conscious mind. But until we recalibrate what's happening in the subconscious,
Hmm.
we're just going to be managing, managing, managing. And when we go so deep to allow a whole restructuring and rewiring and repatterning at the deepest levels, that's really when the most powerful results happen. And that's why it doesn't always happen in the first day. It's a recalibration, but it's a lifetime, a lifelong, like once you've resolved those patterns, they are not existent anymore. They don't exist in your system. So we might cycle through over and over again those healing patterns, but once you're resolving that one layer of it and the next layer of it, like that, you're never the same body again. Because
No, this is, yeah, this is so profound. I mean, I am where I am meant to be. And so one of the things that happened is, we flew to Cleveland and the flight was, anyways, you're squished. And my body, I think through, I'm 70 and through 50 or 60 years of just doing this contract, my body's I felt like it was all torqued. And so my stepdaughter, Sydney, she has a cranial sacral therapist that she sees. And I just had this hit of, Sydney, can you see if you can get me in to see her? And she was able to. So this is this whole universe, working for you. And because of what I have learned and incorporated through the Embracing Health program, the cranial sacral, I've never had one before, but they allow your body to do the healing, to do the change in the movement. And so the woman was working on me and I just let go. I didn't get my ego in at all. I just let my body totally relax, and all the fascia, she goes, oh, wow, okay, this leg just got an inch longer. Oh, wow, we just undid this rib. But she's not doing anything. She's just putting her hands in places.
Yeah.
But because of what I've learned through you and Alicia and Jessica and this amazing group that was in this year's program, it's just like, over and over the reinforcement of soften, the universe has my back. And so my whole body untorqued. And I've been able to work in the garden or work in the woods all day long now, And so it's more than just the eyes. It's my whole being is healed. And healing doesn't mean that my eyes don't bug me every so often, but when they do, it's usually I'm triggered. And so they're it's my friend. And that's what you were always saying about fear, is it's your friend. It's letting you know. And so I don't have fear anymore. I'm not afraid of my body. I don't hate my body. I've gained weight. I was always one of these that I weigh between like 95. I'm 5'2", and I weigh between 95. Oh my God, if I got up to 102, that's because I grew up in the days of Twiggy, and I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she was super skinny model, and this was in the 60s and 70s. And you had to be super skinny. And man, now I've put on 10 pounds since your program, and I've got boobs, and I've got a tummy.
Wow.
And it's just like, I am a woman.
Wow. This
Yeah.
is so massive and obviously so much beyond just the eyes, fix my eye problem.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people just throw a drug on and think we've got the thing solved, although I know that wasn't working for you. But when you realize it's so much more about your whole embodiment and everything you're being, there's so much more to it. And someone asked, well, what was it that had you keep going if you just recently got it? And I think this is worth speaking to it, because it's like we're on a journey. There are things happening, whether we're acknowledging them or not. There are major things happening. But what was it in you that knew, like, I'm on the right track and I'm benefiting from this, and let me keep going?
I can't answer that. It was something, my ego was not there. My mind was not involved in it. So it wasn't something that I could say, oh, I need to keep doing this. It was just something I felt that, oh, so the thing about the dream and the suicidality, I'd had a dream about 3 months into this, when it started in 2017. And I was up above looking down on my clothes. Like there was no body in my clothes, but I was up here. And I since realized that meant I need to get rid of that outer crap, all that stuff. It's not that I needed to take myself off the planet. I needed to move beyond that stuff that has been my cage for 60 years. And I think inside, in my subconscious, I knew that I have no idea why I continued. I honestly can't say I had a specific thought.
So was it a knowing? Was it an encouragement? Was it like you were seeing a certain things that were happening on a deep level?
It was trust. It was trust. I trust you. I totally 100% trust you. From 2017 when we first met. That's what it was. It was trust. It was trust that you were placed here for me to connect with. And there's just something about you. And I never trusted life. I mean, I never really had a lot of trust. But something, it was trust. That's
beautiful.
All I can say.
That's really beautiful, because that's also the sort of antithesis of where you were before, with holding it together and tension and that rigidity of where you had lived. And there must have been something in you that you had some devotion to, that vision of the artist, the freedom, the joy, and moving toward that life. And in it, that's another good little nugget for people, is when you just connect with that vision or the essence of, like, what am I really in for? Joy or freedom or love, or, it's anything of that truth. So anything you want, like, oh, well, I really want to have my health back. Oh, I really want to have a great job. I want to have money. I want to have a lover. And then go underneath that of, who do I get to be when that's in place? What is it I experience when that's in place? And that will bring you more to the essence of what is calling you. And then there's really devotion to that. Like, I know it, I feel it, I'm choosing that. And life will bring the resources and the opportunities to assist you, but you've got to say yes.
Yeah. And it's also, there's so many things that you brought up. I mean, I felt like I was actually, in a yogic journey with you too, because you brought out, the Tonglen meditation and the love coming up and sending it out to the collective. And my whole life, all I felt was, anger and fear and hatred at our culture that is so repressive. And oh my gosh, and that's so hard on your body. And so slowly, I think each progression, each month was a little bit more. But when you did that, the Tonglen was the one that was like, oh my gosh, where you go into your body, you feel that darkness, you put it in your heart and you transmute it into love, not just for yourself, but you put it out because that's the only thing that is going to create the change that, and maybe it'll never happen worldwide, but if I can be a light of love and listening and holding space for myself, my family, my friends, others. I mean, I notice just the whole way I've become. I mean, I live an hour outside of Eugene, which is town, and go in maybe once a week and have to do all our, grocery shopping for the week and whatever we're out of because we're out in the woods. And it used to be this battle. Oh, I hate going to town. And it's so different. It's gotten so more built up and so crowded. And now I go in and I go the speed limit. It's a little mountain highway. I go the speed limit instead of zooming to go in. I'm just like, I'm relaxed. I'm just love. And every place I go to works smoothly. Or if it's glitchy, it's like, okay, what's this showing me? Listening, not fighting it, And and it's working with my husband because he was always this fast driver and got on people's tails. And it's like now he's like, because he was fighting this, like, oh, I got to go to town, I got to do this, and that's how I was too. And now we're both kind of like, okay, it is what it is. We had a forest fire a couple of years ago that was like a mile from our house, and it burnt the whole valley down to Eugene. I mean, that road. And we would have times where it would take an extra hour, to get there. And so if you have an appointment at 10, you'd have to leave at 7:30 or 8. And I think, and that was, you were so sweet during that time period because we evacuated. We had no idea if our house was going to burn down. And you were so sweet. I have up here, open, this is what you wrote me when I was just terrified. Open to let the universe take care of your every need. Stay in flow, knowing it's all in place for you. I did a little painting of that, and it's on my bulletin board up here. I mean, so you've always been there for me. But it's not like a clinginess, I need you. It's more like, I don't know. And so this whole, everything, my whole being is what I think we all want the world to look like. But if each one of us can be that, and maybe it won't make a difference. And in the end, the idiots are going to destroy everything. But if we can just be that, because what other choice do we have? Fighting's exhausting. I fought for too many decades, and no. So this is all new to me.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, those people can't be there. Oh, that's terrible. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it is what it is. Yeah. So, and it's so funny because I still, like yesterday, I had so much deep sadness come up. And I think it was because I was kind of reflecting on my life. And it was like, normally it'd be like, oh gosh, you're just nervous. Go take a lorazepam or something. You'll be fine. But it was more, okay, I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to paint. I'm going to go work on our house. And I'm just going to allow it to be. And so what it is, it's like, all the first couple of years, all the surface stuff came up. And now it's just like, you call it that sludge that's sitting at the bottom. Because I used to have the attitude of, oh my gosh, something great's happening. Now something bad is going to happen. But now it's the opposite. It's like, oh, something bad, quote unquote bad, is happening. Okay, great. Just come on up. I greet you so that we can make more space for that blissful feeling. It's a whole different way. It's an anti-cultural way of living. It's not our culture at all.
Yes, or certainly the culture you were a part of for so long.
Yeah.
What was it like? I do want to focus on the physical resolution. When you went to your doctor and he said, I know they said you have this disease. I don't know if they gave the name or just meibomian gland disease. This will never get better.
Dry eye disease.
Dry eye disease. Your meibomian glands don't work, which you knew kind of wasn't true because sometimes they did, sometimes it didn't. What is it that's allowing them to work? those are the things we want to look at. What was it like when you went and that doctor said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because your eyes are better? What was that experience like? And we just have like 2 more minutes, but I
Yeah,
want.
yeah. Oh, it was great. I just went, I think it was the end of last year, and she was so excited. They take pictures, and she was so excited. She says, "Oh my gosh, you have all these meibomian glands that are working, and there's oil, and your inflammation's gone down." And I do a treatment once every 6 months on the face and around the eyes, and then I do an eye yoga, and it's all trying to just relax your face muscles and the sutures in your skull is what it's really all about. And yeah, she was blown away. She was totally blown away. So it was like, yeah.
Thank you for trusting that space in you and following that and going for your joy when certainly that reflection in the world of your past would have said, nope, you don't get it. Day's over. Sorry. That you open to something more. It takes really great courage. And thank you for sharing and coming here today. I know people want to reach out to you. So it's Nancy Holzhauser. I've spelled it in the thread here in the MindBody community, or at Nancy Holtz, HOLTZ.
No T, no T, no
T. HOL.
Did you put in a T?
I've spelled it so many times, but okay.
It's HOLZ, HAUSER.
Okay, I will put this again. And so you can find her in Instagram or in the MindBody community to ask her any questions or follow up and things like that.
Well, and I cannot express the amount of trust and faith and gratitude that I have for you and your team and this group, the group that was in here this year. It's just beautiful. And you are you are profound, Kim. You are just profound. I thank you so much. Totally. So.
Thank you. Thank you for coming here. It's helpful for people to feel this work from the other side of it and what it's like to receive this. And the journey looks so different for each person that it could be, taking more time, but always growing you. So for some people, some things happen quickly, other things, with relationships or other aspects of life unwind in a different timing. And it's really a matter of trusting your life's path, but knowing that you can be in your expansion right now. You don't have to wait for that disease to be gone or XYZ to come into your life. Like, you can be in that peace and that joy and let it start flourishing in you right now. And it will show you the way to allow more and more of you into your life. So for those of you who are ready to join for this year's group, it's at drkimd.com/health. If there are questions, you can email support@drkimd.com. The workshop is still on replay. So it's at drkimd.com/workshop. We did a couple of weeks ago to sort of be the kickoff call for this. So you understand, like, what is the scientific premise of this? What are we doing? But if this speaks to you, I would invite you to register and be a part of this group. I am so excited to welcome everyone who is in the group and coming in and has registered, and that's all percolating now. We have our online community, and it's so beautiful to see so many people ready for this more than ever before. So more courage, more receivership, and there's so much here for all of us. And so you can let go of what you think is not possible. It's just heaviness. It's just even just the energy of helplessness, or the energy of despair. And we can move through these energies. We can move through to let them transmute and let them resolve out of our system. So that is no longer what's created for us. So welcome to the program. It's at drkimd.com/health. Thank you, Nancy.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I'll be here next week for MindBody TV. Our doors for this will close on June 2nd. So for those who are ready, be sure you are registered before June 2nd, and we will begin. And as always, lots of love to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye-bye.